Greetings. I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, we have budding poet, psychologist in training, and all-around amazing person, Ash. Check it out. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of courage. We know you could be anywhere. So the fact that you are here with us today, sharing your time, which is your most valuable resource with us, it means the world to us. And I say us not just as the royal we, but as in the actual we, for I am not alone. I have an amazing, wonderful, brilliant, poetic guest today. They go by the name of Ash. Ash is a budding poet, psychologist in training, and is excited to be hanging out with their friend Tom, while eagerly awaiting to share their voice with everyone here on the podcast and as the feature for next week's live and online expression session. How's it going, Ash? Welcome to the celebration.
I'm really excited. It feels like a party already.
How did I do on the intro?
I think that you nailed it.
What can't get said in a 1 second intro or 1 sentence intro?
What can't get said? Well, I am incredibly family oriented, so a lot of my work revolves around that. I know that maybe we touched on it, but right now, your boy is in a state of limbo, waiting to hear back from several schools. So if you guys are in the same boat as me, we're going to make it. Trying to think of something else. Oh, and just a fun fact, because I'm proud of it. This took an hour and a half to do my hair in this the other night, and it looks bomb, and I'm excited to share it with you guys.
Yes, indeed. What does that mean for you? I'm family oriented.
It's a polite way for me to say that whenever I have a conversation, I can't help but drop one of my family's names in there just because I'm always thinking about them. So if I end up talking soccer with somebody, I say, my older brother, he's been playing soccer for longer than I've been alive, literally. And if people mention New York, I'm like, hey, my sister's studying there, getting good grades, riding the wave. And when people talk to me about makeup, then I have to mention my little sister, because I think you follow her on Instagram, Tom. Mm-hmm. She's a guru with the face stuff. And I think about my mom like 24/7. So
what does that give somebody in life, having a amazing family foundation like that for you specifically? What has that allowed and provided and empowered for you?
Yeah. The support from my family and the togetherness of my family, like, it gives me a net, right? Like, people say close knit and they never really understand that when I say close knit, that I mean like I could fall and I have 5-6 people waiting to catch me. And I think that it's something that everybody has, even if you don't have it doesn't have to be biological. Family is whoever you make it. I have plenty of aunts and uncles that aren't actually related to me. They're good friends of my mom's, good friends of my brother's. So I think that it's important to have a good foundation like that. And you have one, whether you realize it or not. There's always people who love you a little bit more than you think they do.
That's wonderful. So you also said you're a poet. Is this true, or did I make this up?
No, it's true. It's true. Actually, I think that I celebrated my anniversary of being published in my first out of university zine 2 days ago. What? It was called Daughters of Violence, the very first issue, and I had 2 poems published by them.
What did that feel like? How did you, when you were celebrating that, what were some thoughts that were going through your mind?
I was so excited because it was like, you take a minor in college, which is what I did for creative writing. I told myself, even if I get a little bit good at it, it might not be something that I can ever share with other people. And the fact that I kind of could get on the way to doing that. Like, I'm taking my first steps into doing that, and to kind of celebrate it all by taking another really big step for me with you. Like, it's really amazing. And I felt empowered. Yeah.
What does that mean for someone to follow their dreams, to trust that whim that you did, where you minored in it and you went for it and you keep progressing on it? What does that mean?
Well, it can mean different things for different people. I know that it looks like a different journey for everybody. So there's no like measuring stick. That's like the first thing I want to say, because I have plenty of friends that did that same minor as me, that one of them's in China right now and she gets published like every 3 months. Sure. And her poetry is amazing. I mean, I used to read it in workshop and I was like, wow, this girl is really something. But, you can't be doing that to yourself, because when I post that I'm doing something like this with you, or when I tell people, then she's one of the first people, even though I would never think that, to say, I'm so excited to read your work again. I'm so excited to see you. There's more support than you think, even if it's not coming from where you think it should be. So don't be afraid to take steps, because it's not ever shaky. There won't ever be a shaky foundation if you're meant to do it and if you want to do it.
Where does that come from for you? That sounds almost like a faith or a spiritual or world belief. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
No problem. I guess it's a world belief for me. I really believe in discipline. I'm a huge believer in discipline. I'm still working at it. It's a process for everybody. But I think that also there are some things that are meant to be and some things that aren't. So, for example, every rejection that I get right now from every school that I am waiting on, I take it in stride, because I know maybe I wasn't meant to be there. I've applied to a lot of out-of-state schools, some new programs that I took a chance on. If I get rejected, then it wasn't for me. So,
when did you start to believe that things weren't meant for you, or to have could you talk to me a little bit more basically about that belief?
Yeah. So I started learning that this past year, actually, in 2017. Really, I guess the lesson started in 2016. I had a really bad experience doing something that I thought I was going to love. And, coming back from it, I realized, A, I shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. It wasn't meant for me. And then B, it wasn't something that was going to really help me in the long run. I didn't need that thing, even though it was part of my plan. But plans, one of my favorite musicals says the best laid plans will always go to waste. And that is the truth. There's always a bigger plan, even if you can't see all the steps yet. So, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know. It may be like left over from what I used to believe religiously. I'm not really a religious person anymore, although I would call myself spiritual. I still hold like a predominantly spiritual belief. There's a higher something. People say tugging strings. I don't really like to say that, but are they button mashing on an Xbox controller somewhere? Probably.
Einstein said the most important question we can ask is, do we live in a kind universe?
I don't think we do.
Didn't see that coming.
I know. But you know what? To be fair with you, life isn't kind. I've been really lucky. I've been really privileged. My life has been pretty kind to me, but life is not something that's here to cradle you, and it's not something that you're meant to win either. It's something that happens the way it happens, and it's not always going to go the way that you want it to.
Talk to me a little bit about that belief and the one you were talking about earlier, where everything has a meaning for you or a purpose, or how do those two live together?
Well, so I know that it seems strange that they could coexist, but the first belief helps me, believing that there's a meaning for every no and every yes helps me kind of remember, even when the universe isn't being kind, there are kind moments. So I don't expect the universe to be kind to me all the time. I feel like to believe that I live in a world that's going to be good to me all the time is a little naive, because I know that that's not what happens for a lot of people. And for me, I have had some bad things happen to me. They're not, I don't like to play plain Olympics or anything, but, I've been pretty lucky. That being said, but there's a way that everything is meant to be. And sometimes we have really big decisions to make that affect that. Don't get me wrong. Without those big decisions, though, just kind of the little no's and the little yeses, that's something that you're going to have to get used to. It's that's the way it is. So then if that's the way it is, that's a little bit ruthless, and that is certainly not kind.
What is the play that you shouted out?
It's called Elizabeth the Musical, better known as Elizabeth das Musical. It's a Austrian musical about the Austrian princess, Elizabeth, who was married to a Franz Joseph right before like the fall of Austria in World War II.
So I feel like you've given us a good launching ground and a lot of excitement to hear some of your poetry. Would you mind sharing one with us?
No, I wouldn't mind sharing one with you. Let me see which one would be the best to kind of start off with. Can I start with a little one that's longer? Is that okay?
Start with whatever one you'd like.
Okay. So then I'll start with this one. It's called Labels. And it's more, well, I won't explain. I know your rule. So I'll just read. I wonder how many times I can bleed different words to say the same thing. I am clawing myself apart to mash myself into two different pictures, and they never come out the same. Like find the difference puzzles, but the differences are never where they should count. Always the same nose, the same hips, the same heart, always the same eyes, and never the same gaze, which is like 97.85% of the problem. Mash it all back into a processor and spin again. This time, the words are dripping, but I still have no way to say that my body is a mismatched friendship necklace. Silvery edges, tarnished because it was only a veneer and it didn't last for long, wasn't made to last. My hands fly across the expanse again, and my pen writes two-faced, writes two people, writes one drowning person, draws a flag. I try not to make eye contact with the scraps, but the white is so loud and buzzing, like how your head feels before you faint. I'm swallowed, butterfly caught in a stomach, and when I wake up, I'm still incongruous. A glitched gif with no moving parts and a frozen mouth with two pretty eyes. I am covered in dry word, and these are still beating in my hands. They are still dripping, and I am up to my forearms in it, but still no good way to say. I think I exist as two separate things, and it would be easier to call both of them it, but they insist on different pronouns, and the preference alone jabs like a thorn in the side, let alone the actual undertaking. I can't say it. There are too many butterflies in my throat, and my stomach is a roiling sea of white noise and scraps. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. That's the first time I've read that out loud, actually.
I was going to say that felt like a really vulnerable and honest one to start with. Appreciate that.
Of course. Hey, you know me. Got to jump in feet first.
Is that true?
True. I'll be scared about it the entire time that I'm doing it, but you have to, because that's the only way to get over anxiety, man.
Just to go for it?
Go for it. Yeah.
What does that poem mean for you?
It was tricky for me to write out a poem that wasn't what I considered something stereotypical, a stereotypical picture of like trans and non-binary and gender. And it was also a challenge to myself to write a poem that didn't include labels. So I named the poem that, and I told myself I wasn't going to use it at all. I was going to use it one place, and that was going to be in the title. So then I kind of took that and ran with it. It represents, I have a lot of questions about my validity and about my own thought process, I guess. So, in a person who's constantly questioning themselves, I feel like I have to constantly redraw myself, and that's what I hope this poem conveyed.
Do you mind expanding upon what you mean by, in this context, questioning your own validity?
Yeah. So you're a cool person. So you're one of my friends. You refer to me as they and them. I identify as a non-binary Black person. I'm sorry. And also that's the first time that I've said that out loud. So there you go.
Yes.
We're going first the entire way tonight. But that poem for me, it's something that, like I said, when I question my validity, you kind of think to yourself as a non-binary person, for me, my experience is, am I really feeling this? Is it, manufactured by something? Is it dependent on something else? Do the feelings really come from me? Is it really as bad as I'm making it seem? And when you have really bad days, it kind of happens in a way that, like, you're thinking, did I push myself too far? And then when it's not that bad all the time, you're like, okay, so then it's not really something important, right? You think, oh well, it's not in huge pain all the time, so I can still work with it, or I can still ignore it. I can shove it to the side. I can not acknowledge it. That hasn't really been working for me. So that's part of where this poem came from as well.
How does it feel reading it for the first time, saying those sentences for the first time, proclaiming it like you have? How does that feel?
I think I used a word before we started recording today, and that was scary. I feel like I say that every one of your sessions too. I think I've re-recorded. But it's true. It feels it's a little terrifying. It's overwhelming, like it's gonna engulf me, but also it feels really good. It feels really good. It's something that I have to fight for all the time. People gender stuff way more than they realize, especially if they're, somebody who has never been socialized to see it other words, and that's not their fault. Obviously, what we're socialized to put out is what we're socialized to put out, and that's the way that society is. That's no fault with a person personally, but it's exhausting. It's like dealing in microaggressions all the time, except for instead of it just for being Black, it's like a second whole layer that people don't even realize exists. Yeah.
That's deep. I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability on this one.
Of course. Hey.
And just in case you haven't had a chance to explicitly or express in the sharing that you've done so far, then what does it mean for you to be non-binary?
So for me, being non-binary is still a journey. I vacillate really between two different labels. One of them is better known. It's gender fluid. The other one that I kind of also identify as, or I is like a subset of gender fluid, is bigender. Excuse me. So that for me means that there are days that I wake up and I look at myself and I go, well, I look completely wrong. And I have a binder that helps a lot with it. I can change my gender expression to match my gender identity for the day. But, it's like training in exercise or training with something else. Like once you get used to, for example, like not having sugar, then you can't have sugar in anything. Once I was used to dressing like myself fully, then I needed people to start referring to me the right way, and needed to hear that from people, the support, and like I said before, I have a really strong family foundation. They're so cool about it. They're always sure to ask me. They never post stuff without, they don't assume, but it's not a joke for me to say my gender gets assumed all the time, and it's really difficult to bear.
Yeah. We connected through a program called Anytown. Community Tampa Bay's Anytown. And they have this vision of a world free from discrimination. What do you think it would be like to be going through the experience you are right now in a world free from discrimination?
Well, I think it would be A lot easier. I mean, maybe I wouldn't get so much dope poetry out of it, but the fact of the matter is, if I could go out someplace and it was standard for somebody who's waiting on a table to say, "Hi, you guys, my name is so and so. I use she and her pronouns." And before we get started, really quickly, is there anything that I should know? Or even when going out, when people help other people in shopping stores. They don't automatically assume you must be looking for makeup, or you must be looking for the men's section. You must be looking for skirts. You look so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Just, it would be easier if people were always aware. And I think that a world without discrimination could afford that opportunity.
And I imagine, too, that it wouldn't even need to be a conscious awareness, that it would be so ingrained in our politenesses.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean about socialization, right? So a lot of my friends who are a little bit younger or who have gone to more liberal colleges, like my private university where they're, where they kind of have enough backing that they can do that, because it's not always safe or comfortable for other people to do that. I have to acknowledge that. They are socialized like that. They always ask me before they call me, before they text me, hey, really quickly, what are your pronouns today? Or, hey, how are you feeling today? Even a really simple, is it Ash or Ashley? Just to kind of feel it out before we continue with the conversation. It takes 2 seconds. It doesn't take more than that, and they always make an effort to remember. Some of them slip up because it's hard, especially if they met me as just she before. But the fact of the matter is that they all try, and I think that just the trying is like the biggest part. So,
the intention.
Yeah, exactly. So
what did you mean when you said for some people it's not always safe or comfortable? What did you mean by that?
Well, there are a lot of people who don't quite believe that non-binary is a thing, or it confuses them, so they don't handle it or unpack it at all. There are people that it's something that they're uncomfortable with, or some people even it's something that they thought about themselves and then we're like, no, I could never do that. I'm not allowed to. And so then they're kind of overly aggressive in policing it. And that makes it unsafe for some people to feel comfortable enough to do that in. Especially in a professional workplace. In my state, for example, there are no gender discrimination laws. I can't turn around and ask my boss to call me they or them. She doesn't have to do that at all. Like, she's not legally obligated. Excuse me. So, it's not always safe or comfortable for people to offer even just the allyship, because it can put them at risk, because it's still something that's very touchy for a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate you answering all my questions.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing another poem with us, since they create such wonderful conversations?
Of course. Let's see. I think that I will share this one. So this one is called Basket Stitch Gossip. And I will share a fun fact, possibly, after the poem, because I don't want to explain anything. So, sorry, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat. Under the fluorescent buzz in this Target, my girl Reese shuffles through wallets and phone carriers looking for a replacement ladder depth for her proof of self to rest safely in, says, my bae and I got similar issues, and pops her S's, if you could even do such a thing. Inspects a tacky faux wallet with her proscenium eyes. All the pockets are leather, are small or deep or buttoned or stamped, a swamp of tassels and chains at my feet. Cell phone Ella, none of them are the right fit, and so the tide rises. I tuck my sharp incisor teeth, an incessant need for attention in the rows between digging, between fern prints and flaking gold zippers, trying to leave how much he doesn't want me, trying to tuck my own crying child into the depths under the buzz of the hot white and roots of the walking trees. When she throws up her hands in defeat, I do the same and let the web of my hand drown out the white noise. Thank you.
Yes. That was powerful.
Thanks.
I always love the symbolism and the imagery of your poems, especially after coming from a slam background where everything's super spelled out for you. You know, like if I hate the president, I will say their name, rather than give it like a power structure where you kind of can read into it. So it's always refreshing the way your poems are an adventure. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, Tom, you're making me blush over here.
But we're curious to know the random fact.
Oh, so the name Reese is actually short for my girl Marisa that I met in Miami about 2 years ago. And I don't know, that crazy girl somehow captured me in my heart. Aww. And we're still long distance friends, even though I haven't seen her in about 2 years now.
That's wonderful. Well, hopefully you send them this recording.
I have to now. She's going to be so proud of me for doing something scary. So,
so another random fact, if you don't mind sharing, I believe you have a sibling who's near your age. Is this true?
Are you talking about my twin sister?
Very, very similar age.
Actually, I'm the one who's close to her age. I'm the younger twin by 60 seconds.
Okay.
I think that was, not a long time at all. I was like, what can you do in 60 seconds? And then a fireman who was like coming off of duty, we told that joke to a Publix cashier. He was standing behind us and he was like, 60 seconds is the difference between living and dying when you're in a fire. We were like, I guess it's a lot of time. We're sorry. So I've never made that joke again. So.
Like, okay, fire person, this got serious.
I was traumatized. I was like, he was like joking around with us, right? He's laughing, but he was like, hey, careful what you say. And I was like, I will be so careful because, wow. Yeah.
What's your, if you don't mind giving a shout out, what's your sibling's name?
Oh, her name is Alex. Yeah, Alex Sullivan. We have the same last name, obviously, but also, fun fact, we have the same initials. Her middle name starts with the same letter as mine. So I am APS, and she's also APS.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Well, our next question is coming directly from Alex. Is that cool with you?
Yes, it is.
Alex would like to know a couple of things. For one, Alex would like to know, who were your influences in your writing, and what is influencing you right now?
One of my biggest influences is Langston Hughes. I could talk about him all day. Man, music with his poetry. That's all I want it to sound like. And right now, oh gosh. I've been trying to read more like indie magazines, journals, signs, and so I've been taking a lot of different kinds of poetry that way. I'm trying to think if there's a specific author that I've been reading right now, and the answer is no. I have a lot of anthologies, so I've gone through a lot of native poetry by native poets, a lot of Hispanic poetry by Hispanic Americans, self-identifying, of course, and a lot of African American poetry in honor of Black History Month. I just came off of like a 3 week binge of that.
That's wonderful. I think Langston Hughes is sometimes someone that gets name dropped a lot. So would you mind kind of, you said you talk about him all day. If you could just share a little bit of, make it personal. What about Langston's work influences you as a writer?
So Langston Hughes, for me, was the very first poet that I read and really related to, which is strange because I didn't really have anything Black in my life that I could relate to before that time. I was, somebody who grew up in a suburb where there weren't a lot of people who lived in Black culture or expressed Black culture the way that I know it to be. It was certainly kind of frowned upon, especially, 15 years ago when I was really young. So Langston, I could open up a book and his words are like jazz. I mean, he would write these little short snippets. I was writing like pages and pages and pages of poetry and calling it one poem. I still kind of do that now, but I can chop it up. But he would, and in 4 sentences, I mean, he would catch you like that. And he builds up a rhythm. He also introduced me to series. I didn't know that you could take a theme and keep running with it if you weren't done in one poem. If it kind of haunted you, you could, take that. I would be reading one book of his work and then the second or the third published and find something that was, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the name. He has a series of poems about like a woman who lives in Project 8 housing. Her name is Ms. Something. I cannot remember for the life of me, but those poems are so funny. They're humorous. And then, the next page is something very candid and very tragic. He has a poem about a funeral going down in the middle of Midtown Harlem or something like that, and talking about, his working girls, the pimp's working girls crying behind the coffin, and, him and his boys, they, built up like $60 to get him a coffin and get him a burial spot. And, he could do all that and stuff with, so just slide, man, or catch that boogie and stuff like that. And I never heard that outside of, Pam Grier movies. I thought, it's going to be corny, but finishing with it, it felt real. And then it established a rhythm. And he also used italics, which I was in love with. And I didn't think that you were allowed to use in like published writing. So I was so fond.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
I feel like if anybody hasn't yet dived into Langston, that was a great trailer right there.
Oh, please do. You will not regret it. If you do one thing, if you're like, oh, I need to celebrate Black History Month a little bit later. I only went to go see Black Panther and that was it. Read some Langston Hughes. It will, inflame you. It's so good.
Alex has another question.
Of course.
She'd like to know about your godmother. And she mentioned was the reason we both write.
Yeah, she is. So my aunt, her name was Melissa Waddington. She passed away, I think it's 2.5 years ago now, maybe 2 years ago. Is it 1, 2? Yeah, I think it's like 2 full years and a couple months. And she was a published writer. She worked on a lot of magazines, but like beyond all that, because that's just like real word stuff, like she taught me how to write. She was my writing tutor for years and years and years. And she set us up so that we could always have a way to express ourselves. She goes, when it gets too heavy in here, you got to let some of it go. So she always encouraged me in my poetry. Poetry wasn't really her jam. She was a fiction writer. And I think that part of the reason that I hate my own fiction writing right now is because for the life of me, I can't get it to sound good. I think I'm doing that measuring stick thing that I told everybody else not to do, like against her work, which is like the worst thing I could do, right? She was A+. But, I have to learn from the greatest. So I did. She was amazing, man. Amazing.
That's wonderful. Well, we appreciate you speaking, her name and her legacy so we can continue to honor it. So appreciate that.
Thank you so much for letting me do it.
Definitely. And thanks to Alex.
Yeah. Thanks to her, I guess, too. It's my sister. I don't have to be nice about it.
Well, would you mind sharing another one of your poems that you have prepared for us?
Yeah. Why not? I wrote this one. This one is new. So I will read this one. I won't explain. I'll just say afterwards. This is called Anecdoche. Splayed hands and torn faux leather boots, fingering the jagged edge of fabric and rubbing at the wisps of a raw edge nails, searching for its soft bits, for stuffing the heart. We know all about raw edges. We are nothing but raw and bloody and toothsome, serrated. We file past each other and stick at the shoulders, catching like flint. We will burn this whole building down. Our sigh, a Greek chorus of angsty anthem. We wear our uniform, long sleeves in this 90-degree Fahrenheit heat, and melting black eyeliner pooling in the dips of our eyes. Chorus we sing, you know, legends never die.
I mean, like that one has so many quotables.
Yes, awesome, nailed it.
Oh, I just want to write that on a mirror because there's so many nice lines.
Yes, I really struggled with like rewriting some poems. Like they come really naturally. I only have to do like 2 or 3 things too, and like ones like this. I think of a word and I'm like, that's not the right feel. I have to, and so then I'm on thesaurus.com for like 4 hours. And I'm like, I need one, and I get lost in a maze. Yeah. That's what this one was like.
When you say feel, is it some sort of inner resonance that you're looking for and you feel it and there it is? Is it kind of a in touch with intuition kind of a thing?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an intuition sort of a thing. I really choose my words with a lot of intent. So part of writing in a way that takes you on an adventure means that I can be obscure, but I can't be too obscure because then it's not relatable. Miss Terry Whittick of Stetson University, my poetry workshop teacher, she really was so explicit with that. She would tell me, it's nice and it sounds nice and you're using the right words, but who at this table knows what it means? And she would look and she would say, so here are your poems that you collect the stack that have been workshopped. She said, okay, now fix it. So I have learned to do that to myself. I have to be harsh. I have to say, Ashley, you can't say, for example, I think that the original word that I had for jagged was like huge and long and like 4 syllables, and it didn't get across the sort of I wanted it to be like a more immature feel for that. This was a poem that was set in a time period for me that was a couple of years ago when I was younger. I didn't know as much as I know now, but it was still a good time to be had, and that's what I wanted this poem to convey. So, yeah.
What was the element that you wanted to share at the beginning, but you refrained from so we could experience it?
I was going to say that I just written this poem, and it was about my first year in college. First year in college, I hung out with a girl and my twin sister, and we were rocking Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Linkin Park. Actually, the last little chorus bit where I say, chorus we sing is from one of our favorite Panic at the Disco songs. So yeah, if you're watching this, I love you. That poem is about you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So does the name Sarah with an H ring a bell?
Sarah with an H. I know a lot of Sarahs. That's so bad. Oh no. I feel so bad.
Sarah with an H, also known as Sarah Ogden from Anytown Community, Tampa Bay.
Yes. Okay. You could have just said the whole name, Tom. I would have known. Oh gosh. Or you could have called her a brunette being full of starlight, and I also would have known who you meant. You didn't need to be like that.
The context. We need the context.
Yeah, man. The context.
Be like, do you know a Tom?
I would be like, I know 4 Toms. Can I help
you? Sarah with an H also wanted to share with you her love. And she had as a question that she'd like to ask as well. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay. So kind of going back to what you're talking about with family, Sarah would like to know, surrounded by family of amazing Black women, in your opinion, what ingredients are crucial in cultivating strong, mutually supportive, and empowering relationships between women of color?
The first thing that I want to say is thanks, Sarah, for asking such a deep question, because I love it. And the second thing is let yourself make mistakes and let your girls make mistakes. Me and my sisters, we make mistakes all the time. Aurora, like the least of us, that's my little sister, because she is just so on it. She is a person who takes a lot of information. She is like hooked right there into the interwebs. You know what I mean? She's always aware of stuff. But me and Alex and my mom, my sisters, my cousins, we all make mistakes, and we have to let each other make mistakes. It can't be a defensive, oh, you did something wrong. And when you do that, I feel like for me, I just stopped trying to do that, because it always came from a place that I didn't like. It always came from a place where I was judging other people, and then by virtue elevating myself above them. That is never something that you want to do. It's never the answer, and it's not going to help anybody. It doesn't even help you, because then you have to do that all the time to maintain that feeling. Nah, if it's not something that can grow within you, then you don't need to nurture it. So you have to let each other make mistakes, and you have to support each other. I mean, going to a university where I was really accepted by the other Black women there, it really empowered me. And then when I decided that maybe only half the time I was a Black woman, they accepted me for that, and they still supported me. And every single one of them, like, they made me feel at home in a place that I was struggling to relate to. So we have to be home for each other. Yeah.
That's powerful. So I'm hearing a key element is support, and I'm paraphrasing, but stay safe to fail.
Yes.
And and not trying to maintain like a level of perfection. So we can't scrutinize and things like that.
Right. Because we're always going to be perfect to other people, right? Part of the Black girl magic is people look at us, and if we have even like 70% of it together, people are like, oh my God. So we don't need to have, the other 30%. If the other 30% is in turmoil, if the other 30% is you making a joke that you didn't know was not okay to make, if the other 30% is you messing up somebody's pronouns, or, having to change a worldview, or struggling with a worldview that you knew as fact before and now you don't know, like, that's okay. Let yourself fail. And, more importantly, because I feel like sometimes even if we get to that point where we're letting ourselves fail, let other people fail. Let other people fail in front of you. There are a lot of people that I've managed to become friends with because they failed in front of me, and instead of me ripping their head off, I was like, okay, so how do you want to unpack it? Because it is like about unpacking with each other.
Well, I appreciate your answer, and appreciate Sarah with an H for opening up the discussion. So thank you for that.
I love it.
If you don't mind, we had talked before the episode started, if a question like that felt inclusive and resonated with what you were talking about in terms of being non-binary. Yeah. Would you mind just sharing with the folks listening kind of the conversation we had so they can gain insight as well?
Yeah. So you, like I said, being an awesome friend, you asked me what kind of pronouns I wanted to use for this program, as I've asked you before in some sessions, to use different pronouns. Asked me about the name I wanted to use. Always appreciated. And then upon hearing my pronouns, you kind of went through what you had planned, and it took 2 seconds. You said, oh, hey, there's a question here I think you might not be comfortable with. You let me know that they had used she instead of using they, which is how I'm feeling today. And then asked me if it was something that I was still okay answering, and if I was even comfortable with you asking it, or if I, wanted to skirt around it. I think that for me, I have to understand it never stops. So this conversation, like, coming out is not, I come out every time I talk to somebody new, or every time I introduce myself to a new professor, every time I go on a graduate interview, every time. And that includes seeing people that I haven't seen in 4 or 5 years. When I talk to them again, if there's people who are close to me, like if I saw Sarah with an H while I, visit Tampa in the next few days, then, I would, hug her. I would have a conversation with her. I would let her know, hey, by the way, right now, I'm identifying as this, because it's important to share the information. We were talking about intent earlier, and I think really inclusivity is all in the intent. Sarah didn't intend to hurt me, so then there was no reason to assume that was the case. Even if I didn't know, for example, before we started the session, who asked me that question. It was not out of intent to hurt me. It's not like I've gone to shopping centers and searching through the men's aisle in my binder, no makeup on, very, as close as I can get it, coded masculine and gender expression. I have people that come up and say, hey, sweetie, you look so beautiful today. Is there anything I can help you find? Are you looking for makeup? We have underwear on sale, our blog, et cetera, et cetera. And to that sort of assumption always hurts me. As I try so hard to, we call it passing, as I try so hard, to pass, then it feels defensive. Or people that I've told, this has been very rare, but people that I've told that insist on calling me she still, even when I come to them masculinely coded, then that's hurtful, and that's not inclusive. So it's, about the intent behind it.
Thank you for clarifying for us. And just to add that, Sarah made me promise to ask first what gender pronouns you preferred. And if you didn't resonate with she, her, or women, then she said that I should ask her to submit a different question. So just so she doesn't feel like...
of course not, no. She could never, I don't know, I would never feel like she was... Sarah's always had really great intent behind everything, every conversation I've ever had with her. So I feel like it would be impossible for me to assume that of a question she asked.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we have time for one last poem. Would you like to share one more poem with us?
Yeah, I do. Which poem is it going to be, though? That's the question. Because I've chosen something. Well, I have 3 that I'm trying to choose between right now. And that's pretty difficult. I guess I will share. Yeah, that's good. So this one's called Lion's Mane. Desperation plagues a crown, stalks up and down the line of broad shoulders, a slight double chin, a tight chest. He slips his paws into rubber soles, an upright feline like an old Anansi tail, and wonders if today will pass without challenge. Finally, a day without grating syllables and mismatched titles. Wonders if today he can stalk the ground, stalk the pride lands, and return to his pride intact.
Yes. Woo! Would you mind breaking down that poem a little bit for us?
Yeah, no problem. So that poem called Lion's Mane, I have a lot of, when you get an icky feeling about what your gender is, or your gender not really matching what identity you got going on, they call it dysphoria. It's called gender dysphoria. So that poem very specifically is about some of the gender dysphoria that I feel around my hair. I've struggled and gone back and forth a couple of times. Am I going to cut it? Should I cut only part of it? Will it make me look more masculine? I believe that it's possible for Black men to look completely masculine without doing anything to their hair. But I know that the style right now, different parts of shaved heads and stuff like that. So I've always wondered, am I going to have enough courage to do that? Should I even have to do it? Does it go against, if I don't think that it's necessary, why do I think it's necessary for myself? And of course, aptly, the poem is named Lion's Mane. I have been told my hair, it's tame right now, y'all, but it's usually very long, very big. And, I have had days where I wake up. I've had a perfectly fine few couple of girl days. And I wake up and I say, oh, today I'm a guy. And I look in the mirror and I go, oh, my hair. and I don't know what to do with it. I usually tuck it in a bun, but I always get misgendered when I do that. So I've taken to pinning it into some sort of pompadour, very small, and tucking it under a snapback. Although I'm trying to get braver, my boyfriend encourages me to get braver and wear man buns. He says, if other guys can do it, then you can do it too. I believe in you. So
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is my year of courage. What is courage to you?
Courage is feet first. There was a counselor at Anytown. I think maybe you can guess who I'm going to talk about when I say this. And she used to say, "You feeling froggy? Jump." And I tell myself that like once a day, if not twice or 3 times a day. I'm like, oh man, I'm so nervous about doing this thing. And I'm like, you know what? You feeling froggy? Jump. I have to jump feet first. Courage sometimes is running without looking. It's going into a dark room without any of the lights on. And it requires you being a little bit honest with yourself, because too much honesty can be a little uncomfortable. And that can be a little uncomfortable for me, although I try to be brutally honest with myself. But even if I'm a little honest with myself, I can usually get to a point where I'm like, okay, but does it need to get done? And if it needs to be done, then the thing needs doing. And so,
A lot of what you've shared today, and even the fact that you're featuring for us, sounds like, from what you've expressed, taken a lot of courage. And so there's a lot of people who are listening right now that are inspired by that and maybe even want to learn how they can get a little bit of some of that Ash courage. What would you say? What fuels your courage, or how can someone become more courageous in the way you are?
I would say the thing that empowers me is education. And I don't mean sit down and read a book and read another book and become Hermione Granger. I mean, when I'm scared about something, I try to find out all that I can about it. Before I went to take my car to get serviced by myself without anybody else for the first time, I read about everything I could find about my car, what goes wrong, what the sound means. I find that having all the knowledge puts more cards in your stack, puts more cards in your deck, gives you more of a share of what's going on. And it may just be a small way to have control, but I find that if you can control yourself, you don't need to control other things, which I have really been working on as a person who likes control and wants things to always go to plan. That doesn't happen. But if I can plan myself, if I say, well, here's what I will do if this happens, here's what I can do if that happens, then it makes me a little braver to take the step forward, because I know that I have myself and that I can, have an out, or I can get it good still, even if everything else goes wrong.
Do you have any role models for courage?
Yeah, my mom and my late aunt Melissa. Yeah, both of them. My aunt Liz, they told her when she was, or rather they told my grandparents when she was like 2, that she wouldn't make it to age 7. And then at age 7, they said, oh, she won't make it to, 12. And they said, oh, she'll make it to 17. When she died, she was almost 50. And she had, the world against her, as far as everything that you could think to go wrong, things that happened to her that, you say, oh gosh, even the worst person doesn't deserve that. Those sorts of things happened to her, and her medical struggles just kind of became greater as she got older, because that's what our bodies do when they age. And always a smile, always happy to see us, and always courageous, always wanted to let us know, it can still feel good. Not that it can get better. Sometimes stuff doesn't get better, but you can feel good in the middle of whatever you're doing.
Mm.
You always have that power.
Mm. Wow. When you talked about things like having courage and creating a space where it's safe to fail and allowing yourself to not always have to be perfect, but instead being vulnerable and really leaning into who am I and living that truth. When you do all those things, what would you say is the reward that awaits you?
A better interaction with other people. That's what it's a better interaction with the world around me. The reason that I went into psychology, I had always had trouble understanding other people until in 8th grade. When I took psychology, I was like, oh, good, a manual to understand people. That was my coping mechanism, right? I learned as much as I can. Little did I know that there is years and years and years of stuff worth to learn, because people are individual. They're their own little universes by themselves. And I think that when I do something that betters myself, if we're using a metaphor, I better my space programs and I better my travel programs, and it's easier to get to where another person is. So that's the reward.
Well, Ash, I want to thank you so much. I don't know why you were nervous, because you were a pro at this. This was so smooth.
I think it's you.
Barely. I just say a couple questions here and there.
Oh, but you make me feel comfortable though, Tom. And I love it.
Well, I appreciate that. And when you're chilling on a Sunday with Oprah, Super Soul style, just in the back of your mind, remember that you heard it here first. Give us a little shout out, because we know that, your pathway is destined for powerful and impactful things. So just want to appreciate that and really honor and share my respect, love, and gratitude for everything you shared with us, and for really just showing up and being fully present and open to us. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. You make it really easy. I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but you're really easy to talk to, Tom.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So, I think I would do you guys a disservice if I didn't come as invested as other people came and as vested as you came. So, I'm just trying to match the energy.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And for the folks who are connecting the dots, who are adding up the math, you are correct. Ash is going to be our feature for this Sunday's live and online expression session. That is going to be March 18th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. if you're in Central Time, 3 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, 8 p.m. if you're in London or Nigeria. So we really hope you join us. This is going to be, is this your first poetry feature?
Yeah, ever.
So
first ever.
We need to have the Zoom meeting at capacity of just filled with gratitude and love. Even if you're not able to be present in body, then send your love so that it's just there so we can support Ash, because this is an amazing moment. All poets out there, remember your first feature. And so we want this one to be amazing. So you can join us free, live and online, anywhere in the world, by phone or by video. You can find where to do all that at tomrell.com/ash. ASH. tomrell.com/ash. 3-time always engraves it in people's memories. tomrell.com/ash. And you'll find the link to come join us and to come support. If you're listening to this after the 18th and you're saying, darn it, I missed it, don't worry. Later we'll have it as a replay, as a podcast, or you can listen to the replay by signing up for free and joining Art Makes Impact. You can join that at tomrell.com/courses. tomrell.com/courses. I didn't lie when I said 3 times. tomrell.com/courses. You can sign up absolutely for free, become an Art Makes Impact member, and check out Ash's full replay. Ash, if people want to tell you how amazing you are, how much they inspire you, they want to give you a acceptance to their university and a full ride to their doctorate program.
I wish.
You never know. Did you see that video of that person who cut the guy's waffles and then her university gave her a scholarship? Did you see that?
No. I need to find some waffles to cut. Obviously. So I need a scholarship.
She was working at a Waffle House, and an older gentleman, his hands, he wasn't able to really move them, and he had oxygen masks. So he kind of asked her, "Would you cut my waffles?" So she came over and cut up his waffles. Somebody took a picture of it. It went viral, and her university found out that she was working there to support her funds. So they gave her a scholarship for the rest of her tuition.
That's so great. I'm so happy. She must be like such a great person. I love people with good energy, man. Like you could feel it through pictures and everything.
When good things happen to good people.
Exactly.
So if people want to share that love with you, where can they say hello?
I have a poetry blog at oneofthesmall, all one word, oneofthesmall.tumblr.com.
Ooh, Tumblr style.
Yeah.
Okay, is one the word or the number?
Yep, all words spelled out, oneofthesmall.tumblr.com. Okay. And now you've heard it 3 times.
There it is. That's what I'm talking about. You did it way better than I did.
It's got to be smooth.
I was not smooth. I was like blatant and awkward. And
that's okay. You're never awkward, Tom. I feel like you've been a lot of things, but never awkward.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Oh. So if you're driving or you're cleaning the house, if you're working out right now and you don't have time to write things down, just remember tomriddle.com/ash. ASH. And all of the links to say hello to Ash are all right there for your convenience and for your connection. So as we're getting ready to conclude, what would you like to invite people to consider or to do or to reflect upon?
I would like people to take one step towards something scary. And I don't mean, make an investment, something that's big, but I want you to take one step and tell nobody else. There are plenty of studies that show that when you tell other people about your goals, your brain thinks, oh, halfway there, and you kind of peter out before you can get all the way there. Don't tell anybody. Tell no one. Don't tell a soul. Take one scary step, like make a Pinterest board, research different tattoo shops, or, write down that novel idea that you've been kind of banging around for 4 or 5 years. Just write it down. You don't have to write the whole novel now. And don't tell anybody. Just if somebody says, hey, how you been doing lately? I ask that you tell them, I've been doing something good for me. That's it.
I dig that. Appreciate that, Ash. And I feel like our Harry Potter references have been underwhelming. You snuck in a Hermione quote in there. So for the record, so everybody knows, which house are you in?
Oh, I'm wearing yellow because I brand and ref the Hufflepuff. Don't play with me.
Oh, excellent.
You got the most perfect prefect. Cedric Diggory.
Hey. Oh, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you, honestly, so much for taking this chance, this risk. I know it was a big ask when I Facebook messaged you, and you're like, all right, I'll trust you. Let's go for it.
I had to jump feet first.
So we appreciate that. It really means a lot to us, and you never know who's listening right now, whenever. Maybe it's 5 years from now. Maybe it's when this is released today that's going to hear this, and it's exactly what they needed to hear in that moment. And it was because of your courage, your vulnerability, and your honesty. So thank you so much for that.
Of course. Hey, if I can help one person, that's how a lot of stuff happened for me. So
yes, indeed. So for all the folks listening, we love you. We appreciate you. And as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you.
Peace and blessings.